Good evening, everyone. We are the Gratitude Girls.
The Gratitude Girls are in the house. Hi, Lori.
Hi, Catherine.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good now that I'm here with you. Your pillow says it all. We're so very blessed. Both of us, all of us, everyone included, live and on the replay. It's a really beautiful time to take stock of our blessings and to be grateful and to remind ourselves, in case we're not writing in our gratitude journals, of all the things that we have to be grateful for. And this is a good time of year to give some coaching advice, as we are here tonight. Maybe we can give a little bit of a story as to why we are here. First of all, I'm glad that we're here. We're coming into what, 2 years? Oh my goodness, 2 years of doing our coaching and training in our Facebook group. So I think for some of the members and the guests and the visitors that are here for the first time, I'll start by introducing myself. This is an international training call, and I am broadcasting to you live tonight from Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, Canada, a New Yorker at heart. My name is Catherine Asaro Myers, affectionately known as Rara is in the house. And I'm here with my amazing partner, who is the other side of our international call in the United States. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes, I am Lori Delcrodecki, and I am outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
Lori and I have been together, like it sounds like a love story. It is. Have been together since 2013. Right? 2013 officially. And we created this platform of gratitude to share with you, with our audience. And we decided to have some coaching and training that we would give to you. And, I guess the best way to say that is we're going to give you free coaching. That's the easiest, most direct way to say that. There's no pitching involved. There is coaching involved. And we're going to give you some information tonight that you could probably incorporate into your job, into your lifestyle, regardless of the job that you have. And if you're curious to know what brought us here, I don't know, Lori, if you want to give like a 2-minute story on how we got here. Why are we doing anything on gratitude? It could be anybody, right?
Sure, yeah. Well, Catherine and I actually met on stage in front of thousands of people winning a gratitude award. So that's how we met, and that's how we kind of got together. We've been doing this for 9 years now.
Yeah, this is amazing. When I tell people that, even when I say it, it feels like, wow, I remember the first day. I remember sitting in our condo in Toronto. I remember sitting at that desk. I remember the first show. I remember the first hangout we did. You just never forget the first. So if you're here for the first time tonight, we're happy you got here. What took you so long? And if you've been with us all along, we're really thrilled that you're a raving fan and that you've been following us and hopping on our trainings. And tonight we're going to give you something that we've never given to you before, because we don't cookie cut our coaching and we don't repeat them. They are all different. So imagine if you had actually been here from the beginning, 52 weeks out of the year for the last 2 years. It's over 104 trainings, and we don't repeat them. And that's just for what we're doing right here. So tonight we're going to touch a little bit on, we know it's the holidays. We cannot escape that, nor do we want to. Some holidays have passed and some holidays are coming up. It's a really busy time of year, regardless of what's going on in the world. Christmas will still be here. Hanukkah has passed. There are many other holidays that everybody is celebrating, and we celebrate them all. And for sure, Christmas is one that is near and dear to so many of our hearts, for the simple reason that we listen to jingles, we listen to songs, we see the lights, we drive down the road. And when we drive down the road, we live in the country. I don't know if you have that, Lori. The homes are decorated so beautifully. There are thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of lights on some of these houses. And it just feels like somebody is really out there. At night, it's usually dark. We live on country roads. We don't even have street lights where we live. I don't know about you. There's only a street light at an intersection where there's a stop sign. It doesn't matter where you are. You can't see anything. But now the roads are really lit. And I think that that lifts our spirits. And that goes to say something for the engagement that people have with the higher vibrations. So let's talk about perspective. Let's talk about healthy perspectives. So there's health and there's a healthy perspective. Would you like to start tonight and then I can speak after you?
Sure. Yeah. So I thought about a great idea of, a lot of us work with teams. So whether you're in network marketing and you either have a team above you, you have a team below you, whether you work at a job and you have a team around you, even if you work in your home raising children, your children could be your team and your husband could be your team, right? You're always working with a team, no matter where you're at. If you work in a church or volunteer at a church, like in a Sunday school or something, you have a team that you work with. So there's lots of different places. If you volunteer at, any other nonprofit type place, you probably work with a team. So there's always these people skills, team handling skills, different things you could think about. And that's one of the things that we hear a lot about, the problems that people are having between, the upper echelon and the lower ones, right, so to speak, or the different titles that people have, or, just even in the same, like I said, the same community or things, people complain about things all the time. And so one huge difference a lot of times can be the generations, the generational gaps. But it also could be that, like Catherine said, the perspective, when one person looks at it one way. And another huge thing is that I don't even have in my notes, but I just thought of and saying that is, when you text something versus when you email something, whether you say something or whether they can see you and see your verbal and actions with your body language, or the tone of your voice, right? How you say something with the tone of your voice can be very different. Like, please come over here. Please come over here now, right? There's two different tones of voice and two different looks that can change. And especially in a text or an email, it might not be seen as well. And a phone conversation, at least you can hear their voice inflection. But a lot of times somebody doesn't realize, like, that's why they say anything important or anything in business, you should, like, if you're typing out a text or an email, especially if it's something touchy, you should leave it for 24 hours or at least overnight. Sleep on it before you hit send and reread it the next day, because you might change how you read it. Like, there's lots of times my husband and I, when I have something I have to send to someone in my business, if it's something touchy, I will read it to him, because a lot of times he gives me a different perspective. And so when I say it, he'll repeat back to me how I said it or how he read it. And I'm like, ooh, maybe I should change something.
That's a great point, to have somebody that you care about and who knows you, also who has a different perspective, to give you sort of the feedback on that, which leads me to believe, and we'll stay on this subject for a little bit, to think about, like we talk about people in your team, right? Everyone has a different strength. I was discussing this today. When you're paying attention to something, you pay attention to it so that you can get the whole experience. Imagine walking through Disneyland, not paying attention. You'd miss half of it. So you focus, you stay there, you understand it, you listen, you take it in. We can learn our team members' strengths and weaknesses, and we can leverage them. So if someone is really good at something, I'm really good at table topics and Toastmasters. I get awards for this, right? I have gotten awards for that. You can give me a word and I can give you a 3-minute speech. I don't really need to think about it. It just comes to me. So you would leverage that with someone like me, as opposed to someone who would say, read this, recite this, remember this. That's really not my strength. So in your team, when you learn what people have to offer, you work with it so that they can feel empowered. And when someone is really doing something that they love to do, what do they say? Find something you love to do and you never work a day in your life. When someone is in their zone and they're in alignment, then they're going to feel better and produce. So it makes sense to know, recognize the strengths and to leverage them. Let me step up to the next, or step over to the next point, if I may. Now, when you're talking to your team, you need to know how they feel. Invite feedback and suggestions. I do this at every one of our calls. There is a digital document that says, if you have any questions or feedback, please submit this. You'd be surprised how many people don't. They don't submit it. They're not sure. They don't read it. They don't think about it. But if I ask someone, because they're an auditory learner, they will tell me. So one of the habits that I would recommend you get into is learning if that person is auditory or visual or auditory digital or kinesthetic, and speak to that about them. So if I say, Lori, how was that conversation that we had? How did you feel about that? And if you're auditory, then you're going to tell me. If you say, I need to think about it, then you might be the person to answer it digitally once you receive that. So it's important to invite the feedback from your team members. Otherwise, how will we know what they're thinking? Yes, we can look at their bottom line production and see what they're doing, but we might want to know more than that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And feedback also, fuels the creative process on both sides. On the person that's receiving it, hopefully they're taking it constructively, and that's allowing to fuel that creative process for them to work on things, make things better, always get things better, right? We've even changed Gratitude Girls a lot over the last almost 9 years, right? And so the same thing, we change things up because we take constructive criticism, advice, but we also are always training and growing ourselves to get better so we can feed into who we influence better as well. But then the person giving the feedback also, it fuels the creative process for them too, to help them to tell their perspective and get that across in different ways. So when you have that environment that allows it to go both ways, you can really get explosive levels of creativity. Also trust, it builds trust because people are seeing that you actually care what they think. And it's also going to increase their productivity. So whether they're on your team, whether they're even the little 2-year-old in your house, right? But it's going to increase their productivity when they think that mommy's pleased with them or grandma's pleased with them for what they're doing.
Don't we know that?
Yeah, exactly. And, a healthy perspective values receiving that feedback as much as it does giving it. And so that's where Catherine and I always talk about, Catherine says it at the end of every one of our Gratitude Girls calls. She talks about that, asking people, what did you think of our call? How do you think it went? How did it make you feel? Do you have any comments, good or bad? She invites both, right? And so people tell us things and they feel like they're in a safe place to open up and share. And that helps everybody all the way around.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. And the reason why that's important at the moment, it's in real time. When someone asks you for feedback, you call a bank, you go to a store, they send you a feedback. They say, do you have a few minutes to answer this? Did you remember speaking with so-and-so? I don't know. That was 2 days ago. I don't remember. Or that was 6 hours ago. Is that what the person's name was? I spoke to so many people during the course of the day. Yes, of course, I should remember that it was a bank call, but do I really remember? So in real time, we get that on the spot answer because the person is pretty close to the experience. And after the fact, they may get it mixed up because they're just crossing experiences if they had a lot during the day. So it's important to keep it real. And I think when we hold space and embrace this space, which is what we'll talk about next, we're able to say, how did that make you feel? Is there anything you'd like to let us know? And then we wait for it. We're not rushing. So it gives us a few minutes to truly hear good feedback on the spot. So we talked about embrace. So embrace the love of change. Okay, for some of you, you're saying, absolutely not. I don't like change. I'm not interested in change. I don't want to know. I just want to get through it. I just want to be done with it. Once it's done, yay, I don't have to think about it again. Unless it's something that you repeat. So now tell me what you think about this, Lori. What do you think about embracing the love of change?
I am one of those that likes the stability. I don't like the change. I have one of my favorite restaurants. I eat the same thing every time we go. Even though when they bring a menu every once in a while, I'm like, maybe I should try something else. But I like the consistency. But with that said, through all the growth that I've done over the years and the training and things that I've allowed to come into my life and business, I have learned to embrace change. And just like we said earlier, we've changed Gratitude Girls a lot for the better, we think. And hopefully everybody else does too, right? But because you get the different feedback and suggestions from people, and then you got to prepare yourself for that change if you decide to do it. And especially with two people like Catherine and I, we're a team, right? We're two different people. Granted, it's so incredible how we're even in two different countries. And so many times the same thing happens to us at the same time. And we don't even know it. We haven't even talked. We don't even find out till a week later when we talk again. But yet we find out that the same stuff, we're like that, like, I don't know, in alignment or intuitive or what with each other. But we still have different opinions sometimes on different things and different perspectives, like we talked about too. And so we talk through those things, but we have to work as a team to get through those things too, and to make those changes that are better for the both of us.
And also the support. So if your partner is your partner, like Lori and I, if your partner in your marriage is the partner you're speaking about, if the partner are the people on your team, it's really important to have this understanding that your partners and you support one another. Because imagine, you might know what it feels like to not have the support of your partner. Imagine what it feels like when you're working against with resistance. I guess I better go get that work done, and I'm taking time away from the family. Like, we learned this a long time ago. Include our loved ones with what we're doing. Many, many moons ago, I used to hear, it's for work, honey. My dad would say, I got to do it for work. And sometimes he was watching like a Western on TV. I'm like, why do you have to watch a Western? Because he would just say that I have to do that for work. And that would be all you had to say. And everybody would be like, shh, the dad who's the bread earner at that time, the money earner, has to do it for work. So we all supported him because that's what he said. And somehow it made sense. Imagine, as ridiculous as that sounds, right? Imagine how important it is when you include the loved ones in your life in your decisions to work. I am working so we can take this holiday, have this extra money. pay that bill, fix the roof, give to our favorite charity, have this extra money. Oh, and just have this extra money. Did I mention that? Whatever the reason that you're doing your job, your career, if you can share why, then it sort of makes sense. Because sometimes people might think, well, why are you doing that? I don't really understand. What is the value, your core value system for it? So if you're talking about embracing the love of change, I encourage you and invite you to use your healthy perspective to communicate your healthy perspective with those around you who may not be interested or resisting change, so that they could get your point of view, so that they could hear why. And maybe someone is not going to embrace it. I remember very many years ago, I never liked when my husband told me he was going on a trip. And I used to get a little uptight. And he said, well, how about I don't tell you until the last minute? And I thought, well, I won't be uptight. I'll be less upset. And it'll be a shorter period of time. Let's try it. Of course, I knew the body language, but instead of being upset by it, and then I said, okay, let me learn to cope with it. So you tell me, and now I'm going to adapt. So I went from don't tell me, I don't really want to know, to tell me, I want to learn how to adapt and cope. And so I embraced the change because I tried different ways of dealing with it. And I wanted to see how it made me feel. I felt that I wasn't being really, spoken to honestly when you just waited till the end to say, oh, by the way, honey, I forgot to tell you, I, bumped into the pole and there's a big, fender bender on the car. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to upset you. That to me is by omission, right? So I think that it's important to learn how to communicate to the people that do and don't like things that are different from us. And this healthy perspective, once we share it, as Lori and I are partners, share with each other, then you find that it actually brings you closer together. So what are some of the things that we can learn from leveraging our strengths and inviting feedback and suggestions and embracing love of change, anyone's love of change? Do we have something that we can say, we'll call it a takeaway, right? Should we go over some of those takeaways?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I was just going to add to, that a lot of times someone else, they can have the different, like we said, the different perspective, but a lot of times from that third person can see in, and that's where like a coach a lot of times can help you see that, right? Because a lot of times when you're in your business or in your project or whatever you're working on, you're so in it, you can't see outside that box. And so that's where a lot of times a coach can come in and they can see on it, over it, and they can see with a different perspective to give you different ideas to make it better than what it is. Or, like if it's a process or a service, a lot of times a coach can help you see exactly different ways that you could, challenge that status quo and change things up in your business or whatever you're working on. And their ideas and suggestions, might make it look, sound, feel different than what you're used to, but it may improve it.
Such a good point, Lori. And when you have your coach, be really open to listening. If you're telling your coach and not listening to your coach, you're probably not getting the best experience. And I want to say this as nicely as possible. Your coach can fire you. So it's really important to remember that if you go to your mechanic tells you what's wrong with the car. You do not tell them. When you go to the hairdresser, you give a little bit of an impression of what you want and you let your hairdresser do their job. When you go to the psychologist or the psychiatrist, you go to the medical doctor or the naturopathic doctor, you listen to what they have to say. When you hire a coach, you listen to what the coach has to say. You chose them. And what's really important is that you remember that that's the person you chose in the first place. And if you haven't chosen a coach, talk to us. We can help you with the process, or you can choose us. And the important thing is to have that connection. So if somebody is of a higher, let's say, level in that subject, then you might want to listen to what they have to say. And higher meaning maybe more deeper, right? It's not about like winning, losing, the experience, their bottom line production, the people that they've helped and coached and trained, and the results that you're currently getting. Okay, so let's talk about takeaway. Perspective. The difference between the problem and the potential. That's a great takeaway. What do you focus on?
Right, yes, and focusing on the potential possibilities rather than the present problems.
Rather than focusing on the weaknesses, leverage the strengths of your teammates, and partners.
In creating an environment that values giving and receiving feedback.
So important. Embrace change by empowering your partners and your teammates to develop constructive solutions to the problems that they perceive. Now let's talk a little bit, we have a private dining room to go into. Let's talk a little bit about what somebody can do with us and how.
Yes, so definitely if you have enjoyed our coaching, you can always comment below our video. If you have a comment or a question or anything like that, same thing, comment below our video. If you'd like it to be a little bit more private, you can go to facebook.com/gratitudegirls, hit like on the page there, add it to your interest, but also hit message there. And that message will come to Catherine and I both together. And we will go over it with you and get back with you. Make sure you leave your contact information of how you would like us to respond to you. And go to gratitudegirls.com/coaching. You can see all our information about our coaching. So we have our private dining room that we are getting ready to go into. If you want to know more details about that, go to that page, read on that page about it. You can also find out how you could get into our private coaching and training, where you can also do our one-on-one, or shall we say like two-on-one training, and as well as a little thing that we call try us on for size. So especially women like to try things on, right? This is a new top that Kevin bought me the other night while we were out shopping. So we like to try things on for size and see what we think, right? So check that out. Also, we have that on our page as well.
I love that. I love the try us on for size, because I do that. I don't know how many times a day you change, but I change a lot during the course of a day. And I'm thinking about us all the time, because I'm trying things on and looking, how does it fit? Trying on different accessories and see what they look like. And it reminds me of us, because we ask people to do that. When you're trying us on, you're actually trying things out for yourself, because you get to reinvent yourself on how you look at a problem. So if you are looking, you know, that Groundhog's Day, if you're looking at something the same all the time, and what does Einstein say? What do you expect? What is it when you expect to get different results when you're doing the same thing? You call it insanity. So if you are looking to get some different results, and you might want to present it differently. And when you hear yourself speaking to someone else who hasn't heard you, and you have two of us, you might in fact change your perspective and get quicker results. I love this, Lori. Thank you so much for being my partner, being here tonight. Thank you to our audience for tuning in and checking in with us, because we love hearing from you. When you don't talk to us, we don't know what's going on.
Right, exactly. And just like we taught and trained, we love feedback, whether it's good or bad. We love the feedback. Thankfully, mostly it's good, but we love to get the feedback in different ways. And we take all that in. We read every message, every comment that we get, and take it in, and we implement a lot of different things.
We do. We take action on it. Well, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. just to go over a date before we go into our private dining room, we have the 20th and the 27th of December coming up. We are not taking any holidays, correct? So you can count on us during the holidays over the next 2 Mondays. Tune in, and perhaps we'll give you some of our Gratitude Girls holiday secrets over the next 2 weeks. So tune back in with us so that we could share some of the things that we do to get us through busy times.
Yes, and we will see you next Monday night. Good night, everyone.
Ciao.